So hey there, AP Europeans. This is the second of two videos taking a look at issues in Topic 6.9, Institutional Responses and Reform. If you haven't watched the first video yet, I would want you to watch that one first, because I make a couple of references in there that will help this video make a little bit more sense. Focus where we are here is going to be the transformation of, well, the European city. So this is where we start to see a lot of the different topics in Unit 6 come together in different ways. One of the big things that happens in the transformation of cities is beginning to address the sanitary idea, as they refer to it. The problem that's been happening in cities, and I'm thinking London, Manchester, Essen in Germany, Paris, all of these cities, there is a health issue that's going on. In 1842, Edwin Chadwick over in the UK, he writes the Report of the Sanitary Condition of the Laboring Population, which is a mouthful of a title, but it tells you exactly what it's going to be about. And as you might imagine, the laboring population are living in completely unsanitary conditions. Most of the housing does not have running water, and that is a change that's going to come in through this time period. There are public water pumps that you are using, and as it turns out, some of those public water pumps are in fact going to spread disease, cholera and other diseases that are going to, kind of help initiate this wave of disease and epidemic and plague that's going to come in and hit the working population. One of the guys that's instrumental in, sort of resolving this is he's not English, he's French. This is Louis Pasteur, who is trying to bring into play the idea of germ theory. I'm thinking in a science class, you've probably heard Louis Pasteur's name and the idea of pasteurization. He concludes that water might look clean and taste clean, but it has microbes in it that could in fact make you horribly sick and even kill you. And so he develops this idea of germ theory. He develops this idea of, heating, boiling water is going to be key in sort of killing off that bacterial growth, which is, goes to explain a lot of things. It goes to explain why tea is such a popular common drink, because you have to boil the water to drink tea, and that is something that is, well, going to kill that bacteria. Same with coffee, same with alcohol, like beer and wine. In the brewing or in the fermenting process, they kill the bacteria that's in there. So what Pasteur and germ theory is going to do is kind of see this movement kind of going towards where people could just actually, eventually drink water. For this to happen, I'll get to this picture in a minute, but for this to happen, you need to have an idea of like what you do to kind of clean this up. Thanks to the chemical revolution that kind of comes in starting in the 1870s, a guy named Joseph Lister, develops a sanitizing solution that is going to kill bacteria. You might recognize the name, and if I say, killing bacteria in a solution, you might be thinking Listerine. It's named after him. It's got really nothing to do with him and his life, other than it's a good marketing ploy because he's a well-known name. But what Joseph Lister really invents is a sanitizing solution to clean the surgical tools, because there was no idea that you needed to, sanitize and, kill bacteria on surgical tools before they would go from one patient to the next patient. So real changes here in terms of like the health conditions are concerned. All of this is going to feed into the desire to update the infrastructure of what's going on in big cities. Infrastructure is the networking that kind of helps a city run and function smoothly. And so we see this in terms of like germ theory. The picture here, that is a picture of the Paris sewer system, where you've got like the rail cars that are there because they're trying to actively work to kind of clean things out. But this is designed to, one, let sewage kind of flow out of the city where it's not going to make the city sick anymore, and two, kind of act as a storm drain. So when you get a flooding rain in a city, it doesn't back all this sewage up into the streets, which is going to cause more growth of bacteria and make people sick and die. So sewer systems, I know it's not like, really kind of great dinner table conversation, but it is kind of a big part of this infrastructure. We have also talked about the developments in public transportation, subway systems, electric car systems, wider roads that come into this. So this is one of these things that is going to just make cities a little bit more modern, and I don't have a better way to really say that. This kind of urban redesign, Paris is the role model for this. After Louis Napoleon becomes Emperor Napoleon III in the 1850s, Napoleon III hires George von Haussmann to be the guy that is going to redesign the city of Paris. And this is a city beautification process. There are some consequences to it. There is some working class housing that is going to be demolished, and working class Parisians are going to be relocated to other parts of the city. But there is an improvement in the sewer system. There's an improvement in widening the streets. Napoleon III wants wider streets because wider streets means it's easier to move troops around in case you get another French Revolution coming up in the future. The government could step up to stop it. Novel thought, more on that in Unit 7. But this is also in a beautification process. This is where Paris gets to earn its recognition as a world-class city. The building of the Eiffel Tower in the picture here, that is an incomplete Eiffel Tower in that picture. It's really late 1870s into the 1880s, and it is seen as a way to kind of mark Paris as a notable city, as a modern city, as a cosmopolitan city, is really the fanciest place in Europe, or maybe the fanciest place in the world at this point. When the Eiffel Tower is finished, it's the tallest freestanding structure in the world, which is kind of like, Napoleon III in Paris and France patting themselves on the back saying, gosh, we're really great at being world class. But there are other elements to transforming cities other than just like infrastructure. There are reform movements that are dedicated to reforming prisons, because it used to be like, if you were, convicted and sent to prison, all prisoners were going to they were going to be housed in the same places, and there was going to be the same kind of basic treatment that was going to be given to them. And so what you kind of see that's coming into play in the 19th century is a little bit more of making the punishment fit the crime, that there's going to be hard labor for serious crimes. So the picture here, this is a British prison where they are, kind of supervising prisoners as they are either exercising or, kind of like alternately sitting and taking their break from exercising. So there's a little bit more emphasis on some humane treatment for them, because if you just have like harsh, degrading punishment, there is a sense this could make hardened criminals that could commit more crimes when they're put back out into society. In order to make prisons more, I guess, more efficient, they develop like these real quirky sort of prison designs like a panopticon. So that's a really fancy term on this. So you can kind of tell from this picture, panopticon prison is circular in structure, and there is like this tower that's in the middle that is a guard tower, and all of the prison cells kind of face inward. Now this is an old building, and the exterior wall is just kind of fallen away over years, so you have to imagine there being that exterior wall. But this is a very kind of straightforward design where they can just sort of monitor the activities of each prisoner. It's very logical, very scientific, very utilitarian. So like it shouldn't come as a big surprise that this is like a Jeremy Bentham idea. This is utilitarianist in the sense that it is designed to protect the rights of the prisoners as a way to kind of make sure that there is protection from anybody else, other prisoners that might try to hurt them. But it's also going to make this system a little bit more efficient and smooth. And how about the rest of society when prisoners are released? Like Jeremy Bentham that comes up with this idea, very interesting guy. You should remember to ask me about him in class, and we can talk more about like other ways that he was just kind of interesting and maybe kind of a weirdo, but in class. There's also the development of like modern police forces. I've got like the picture of the police officer here. He's kind of cut out by the prison picture, but you get what we're talking about. The London Bobbies are the first ever municipal police force. They are called the Bobbies because they are the brainchild of the Prime Minister Robert Peel. His friends called him Bob or Bobby, and so these guys were very much, like in that role model. Utilitarianist, greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. Bobbies traditionally are not armed. They are there to just kind of like to monitor activity in the streets and in neighborhoods and to make sure that your life, liberty, and property are being protected from like petty theft, if not violent crime. The other element that comes into play on this is the growth of compulsory public education with the development of child labor laws that are starting to come in. Kids no longer, have to be at work to the extent that they were before, and you don't really want lots of kids idle time, nothing to do, because that's how you cause trouble. No offense to any young people listening to this, but the compulsory education is really sent to kind of like help advance a little bit of economic stability for the next generation, but also to help advance public order and also to help advance nationalism, because this type of education that's going to be mandated by the state is going to help make sure that you get not just good job skills for later on, but you also get good citizenship skills, which include like not committing crimes, but also includes like sacrifice for your country, this kind of nationalism that we still see on a regular basis these days, because this is the same sort of idea that kind of embeds itself into things that we do, like the Pledge of Allegiance on a daily basis. So there's a lot of things that are going on here, from education to prisons to sewers to utilitarianism, and just trying to see a government that's taking actions that are going to help like a block of people. So what we'll see when we go into Unit 7 is how these changes are going to, well, in some ways, continue to spark change that's going to be considered positive, but in other ways, this nationalism that we're seeing grow a little bit here in Unit 6, it's going to take kind of a sketchy turn in some ways when we get to Unit 7. Thanks for listening. See you next time.